Yet again, there have been more layoffs in the games industry. This time, EA has been impacted, in addition to the Sony layoffs, the Microsoft layoffs, the Embracer layoffs, and the many layoffs and restructuring that the industry is currently facing. I want to discuss a little bit about where the industry is going and how this is going to impact the people and also how this is going to impact gamers for years to come. Let's talk about what has happened and how I imagine this is all going to unfold for a few years. So, first and foremost, I wanted to start on a positive note. One of my favorite developers of all time is BioWare. And one of the things that we have seen is that BioWare went through a restructuring over the last few years with notable people like Casey Hudson leaving the company. So, what has happened since that transpired? Well, Casey Hudson went ahead and made Human Origin, and as you can see, he is developing a space game. By combining excellence in the arts with innovative technologies, video games have the extraordinary power to transport you to new worlds of adventure. That's what first inspired me to make games, and it's at the heart of what we do at Humanoid Origin. So, to look at the positive for a second, it does seem like it's going to inspire some of these creators to go off and make their own studio. That is very exciting. Granted, it's not a possibility for everybody, but it is really, really cool to see that Casey Hudson went out and is basically making a new Mass Effect. And the concept art and the world that is being built over at Humanoid Origin is very, very exciting. Casey Hudson's not the only one. I believe this is comprised of former BioWare developers. Nightingale recently released, has a lot of people interested. It is a crafting survival style game. I haven't checked it out yet, but a lot of people have been enjoying it. And it is their first foray into trying something kind of different. Granted, it's crafting survival, and it feels like the market has a lot of competition in this space with titles like Enshrouded and Palworld using crafting survival as one of their core tenets. But the point is, that's two studios doing two vastly different things from BioWare, basically. From the BioWare layoffs, we have seen many projects crop up. This is Exodus. This is the Exodus project, again, comprised of former BioWare developers who are creating another space genre game. So it does seem like there was a passion to create this style of product, and we're going to now see two different interpretations of a space game, and that aspect has me excited. I have said when all the acquisitions were happening, it seems like we are going through a reset point in the industry. And unfortunately, the layoffs are part of that. And it's the worst part. Being laid off at a company has a tremendously negative effect on the people making the games that we all love. IGN just put up an article where they interviewed a bunch of the developers to talk about the human element. It's from Rebecca Valentine. Rebecca's work is amazing. I highly recommend you go read it. There is no denying that we all feel sympathy for those who have been impacted. And the way that's going to impact you is that we're just going to lose people in the industry who make the games that we love. And in addition, I think over the next few years, we're going to see a lot of cost-cutting measures take place where the big AAA space is taking fewer bets or trying to make safer bets and taking less chances. In addition, innovation is going to be less of a focus. We know that Spider-Man 2 cost around $300 million or something to make, and I remember seeing a lot of people online talk about some of the conversations that were happening at Sony where they were saying Spider-Man 2 is a huge success for us, but did the additional investment in the technology of that property result in recouping that investment? And the answer seems to be it wasn't good enough for Sony. And Sony cares about their shareholders, as unfortunate as it is to say that. It's a big reason why I really respect companies like Larian, who came out with Baldur's Gate 3, and they did it basically by being community funded and being focused on the core tenets of what they stand for, creating great games, even if that means being close to being closed, which the CEO of Larian has talked about many times. And that's really, really exciting for me. It does make me wonder what's going to happen in the AAA space. And surprisingly, it seems like the AAA space is going to start doing more pro-consumer things in the coming years, like release their games on multiple platforms. We've seen Xbox announce that they are going to be releasing some of their games on PlayStation and Nintendo Switch, which means more people will be able to play games and they'll have better access via whatever device they choose to play on. Just like you can have access to this channel. If you hit that subscribe channel, hit that bell to get notified when my videos go live. Thank you for watching, everybody. But in all seriousness, I mean, more access is going to be good for the consumer at the end of the day. Granted, there have been some concerns about competition, which I do think is somewhat valid, but I don't imagine that the exclusive goes entirely away. And Sony largely has been pushed by Microsoft to do things that improve what the PlayStation user also gets. PlayStation Plus has improved. Their streaming software and technology has improved over at PlayStation. And that's good. Everybody's raising the prices of the console. They've raised the prices of their games. I do wonder if we will see any impact there, but I don't think so. I think that costs are kind of where they're going to be, because if you raise it to, say, $100 for every video game, I don't think that's really going to solve the core problem, which is a lot of these games just seem sort of lost, and I don't know what causes it. Suicide Squad always comes to mind. I feel like I've talked about it too much, but I just don't really understand how all those ideas came together in that way. You took a studio who was renowned for making single player experiences, and Warner Brothers just had a game with massive success in Hogwarts Legacy where that exact thing happened. But the studio who was known for doing that, you took them and you had them make a live service AAA game, or approved it, if that's what they wanted to work on, and it just didn't hit. And I've talked about my problems with Suicide Squad, but that's just one example of what just feels like a lack of, I don't know what it is, a lack of knowing what your customers want. Skull and Bones is another good example from Ubisoft, the first quadruple A, which is going to be thrown in E. Guillermo's face for many years to come. The first quadruple A game, maybe how much they spent on it is why they consider it quadruple A, but there's comparisons going around saying that Skull and Bones is less of a game than Assassin's Creed was years ago. We had Assassin's Creed Rogue, which focused on the boating element of the game and pirates, and of course Black Flag, which is renowned, and people put those side by side and they're like, what happened? Why was this the focus? And a lot of people say, look, you got to stop trying to get in on this space, or do it in a smarter way. You know who I think has really done the live service model well? Gran Turismo 7. Granted, their store was a little ridiculous to start, but they have supported that game. They're constantly doing updates. It's constantly getting better. The base game was pretty good. That's a really smart way to do it. Another game, Helldivers 2. Helldivers 2 has been tremendously successful, and that's from a much smaller team. I believe there's like 100 people working on that game. Massive success. And what did they do right? They had a clear vision about what that world was. They focused on the gameplay of the property, and they kind of knew that they had something magic there, right? Something that really, really worked well, and they believed in it, and they went forward with it. There was no muddled vision. There was no trying to shove anything that didn't really make sense in there. They have like one lore master. It's a small team, and I think we're going to see more of that in the years to come. And that is exciting. So like, all of these layoffs are terrible. It's really hard to just see the industry sort of suffering right now. But I do think it is part of something that was coming. Bungie doesn't look to sell their company if they're being massively successful. Neither does Bethesda, neither does Activision. Something was happening that all these companies were suddenly like, look, we just want to be bought by the big guy and cash in right now while we can. That doesn't just like happen if things are going hunky dory. So I always said, I'm like, I think we're seeing a reset point. When it was really good and everybody had all the money, everybody was overspending and overhiring during COVID because they saw this big boom because everybody was locked in their houses, and then COVID ended. And a lot of people point to that as the culprit. So I do think that it's really, really scary right now. I do think that we are seeing a reset point, and we're going to see a lot of changes in the years to come. I think that there's games that just get it wrong, like Suicide Squad. Skull and Bones doesn't really seem to be hitting the mark. But then there's games that get it right, like Final Fantasy 16 was a phenomenal game. But it's locked on the PlayStation 5 with only 21 million potential customers to purchase it. And of course, Square Enix being Square Enix said it didn't meet sales expectations. So there's that. I think that's why PlayStation has come out and said, hey, we're going to get more aggressive with PC and mobile. Why? Because they're spending so much money on these AAA games that they need to recoup that investment. And well, everything that's happening is kind of awful. At the end of the day, that's good for players. That means you're going to have more access on more devices. So potentially we could see some good come out of it, but it's a mixed bag. I think there's a few things happening. My main concerns are there's going to be less innovation because companies, at least in the AAA space, are not going to be willing to make big money investments into technology like the fast travel, which everybody ooh and awed about in Spider-Man 2, which is really, really cool. I just think that they play it safe for the next like 5 years. And that might mean less innovation from the AAA space anyway. We're definitely going to see loss of talent. A lot of people are not going to be able to come back. Every job posting that is open right now gets like 1,000 applications in the games industry. There's not really anywhere for everybody to go. So things are going to adjust and people are going to move to new places. And I think we're going to see the cancellation of a lot of great games. We've heard from EA that they've canceled games. We know Twisted Metal was canceled over at PlayStation. Embracer is carving out all these companies. There's rumors that Gearbox is going to go independent. And this is sort of like a big mess in the industry right now. And eventually things will settle. And I'm hopeful that once it settles, we do start getting back to seeing great games again. Because I feel like we kind of got in a period where a lot of the AAA space wasn't necessarily delivering the best. Granted, it's sort of a mixed bag. There were fantastic games in 2023. So maybe I'm wrong on that point. But I do think there will be a bigger focus on making sure that the core gameplay tenets and the core ideas are the strongest they can be, and fewer bets, which maybe that will be good in the long run. We'll see. Because when we see modders taking Valheim and making an entire RPG out of it that looks phenomenal, when we see that happening, and then we see like these AAA companies that just can't organize together towards one clear vision, it's worrying. Something sort of broke. But my positive outlook is we're going to be able to play games in more places, it seems like, with PlayStation going to more places and Xbox going to more places, and more access means more money into the AAA space, which hopefully means better products for us. And I love the idea of being able to access games wherever I want. That's been the core tenet of Xbox for a long time, and that's why I really like it. Minus the whole not putting it on PlayStation, but even that seems to be shifting. I think games are going to focus more on what's important to players, and that's great gameplay. I think great gameplay is going to be at the heart of what a lot of these games are shooting towards. And I don't think anybody goes out to make a bad game. I don't imagine anybody does that, but it's certainly been a bit of a mixed bag in terms of what has been released over the last several years. And I do think we're going to see new studios that make really cool stuff. I'm very excited about Exodus. Enshrouded this year was one of my favorite games. Pal World took a chance and made some wacky Pokemon crafting thing that everybody really, really loved. Companies like Larian are providing a refreshing RPG into the space, and that has me really hopeful for the future. I do think that 2024 and probably 2025, we're going to continue to see the dust be kicked up and settle as the industry recalibrates. Who knows what AI is going to do in the coming years? What is this landscape going to look like? I think, as I've said on this channel many times, I think that console exclusives, they'll still exist, but there's going to be fewer of them. I think we're going to be able to play games in more places. And I think a lot of the old ideas, unfortunately, in some cases, like with physical media, are going to become less common. So it's a big old mixed bag. A lot of people negatively impacted. Some things are going to be good. Some things are going to be bad. And eventually the new normal is going to come along. And hopefully that is a bright future for the games industry. So I could have made another video about how another company laid everybody off, but I just didn't want to make another one of those. I did one about Microsoft. I did one about PlayStation. And it just seems like every day there's a new announcement about layoffs, and it doesn't seem to be stopping anytime soon. But I did want to take a quick second to just say, hey, like, here's what I'm seeing, and I'm curious what you think. It's a hard time to be positive because I think we all feel empathy for those affected by the tumultuous state of the industry. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you are seeing and where it's going. Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell to know when my content goes live. I really appreciate you very much. Thank you so much to the members. I really appreciate you, especially with the current landscape, because you help this channel kind of do its thing. And I really appreciate you. So if you want to support me making content, become a member. Thank you so much to the members who support. I'm going to get out of here. If you want to see the video about the PlayStation layoffs, you can see it here. If you want to see the one about the Microsoft layoffs, you can see it here. If you want to subscribe, you can do it up there. I'll see you for the next one. Bye for now, everybody.